When you think about super successful businesses that are selling through the roof like Heinz or Mattel, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But there's a secret. The business behind the business making selling simple for them and buying simple for their customers. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout as Heinz and Mattel. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/promo, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/promo to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/promo.
This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV, it's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Xyzal is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Xyzal keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all. Take Xyzal. At night.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. Kieran, it's only Monday morning and already the timey-wimey stuff is kicking in because I did just see you a minute ago because we recorded the interview, and I'm going to see you in another minute because we're recording the pod, but both of which are going out at different times. So I'm just going to say hello and say, anything happened in the last 2 minutes?
Finley's at a stretch. That's about as far as it's gone.
Well, Finley would have been interested in the interview we just done, Kieran. I was going to say featuring, actually guest stars a guide dog. Because we spoke to Jon Attenborough, whose book Following Sam is out on the 1st of May. And Jon Attenborough undertook to visit every ground in Scotland, basically, with his dog Sam. And recorded his adventures, and we spoke to him, partly, of course, to plug the book because we're nice like that, but also because we wanted to get some insight into accessibility for fans like John to the Scottish game. John, thank you so much for joining us. Before we start talking about your odyssey across every Football League ground in Scotland, tell us a little bit about yourself and, most importantly, who you support.
Yeah, so I'm a big Dundee United fan. I grew up in Fife, just across the bridge from Dundee. So yeah, my earliest memories were going to Dundee United games, and we're still a season ticket holder there as well. So we always love going to Tannadice when we get the chance to. But in general, I'm just a really big fan of Scottish football, and so I don't just go to see Dundee United games. If we're maybe playing away or something, I'll look at the fixture list and see what games are on elsewhere, and quite enjoy travelling the country and going to different games.
Can I ask whether you were fully sighted as a child? Have you actually seen a football game?
Yeah, well, my vision was a lot better when I was a child, but I was born with no sight in my right eye. So I was only used to having sight, or a bit of sight, in my left eye. And that kind of started to gradually deteriorate around about 10 years ago. So it was around about 10 years ago when I really couldn't make out what was actually happening on a pitch anymore when I was sitting in the stands.
What gave you the idea to visit every league club in Scotland? Or did you just go to one game and decide to keep on going?
So it was actually when stadiums reopened again after the COVID lockdowns, I started going back to Dundee United games, and that's actually when they first introduced me to the audio descriptive commentary service, which is like a specialised live audio commentary in the stadium for visually impaired supporters. It's a lot more descriptive than TV or radio commentary. And I was like, oh, I've never heard this service before being offered. So I was like, wow, this is brilliant. And then I started going to a few away games with Dundee United. So we went along to like Easter Road, went along to Ibrox, and I actually found that they were offering this service as well. So I was like, oh wow, so I can go to away games and also get the benefit of listening to this specialised audio service. And obviously not every club has this service, but I actually just enjoyed going along to the away games with the supporters. I enjoy the travelling aspect of it as well. And I was finding more and more every time we were going to an away ground, or even just going to visit a new ground, we were having really positive experiences. And the clubs themselves, they were just really going out their way to make us feel welcome. And I was like, wow, I wonder if this is like that across the leagues, not just the Premiership clubs, but down in the lower leagues as well. So I decided, you know what, let's try and visit them all. So that's what we've been doing for the past couple of years.
I was going to ask you about this later, John, but now you've raised the audio commentary scenario, I think a lot of us are intrigued to know whether it is like listening to a radio commentary or whether you've got a specialised commentator in the ground that are giving you different details and a different sort of perspective on the game.
Yeah, so it is very different to listening to on the television or the radio, because it's a lot more descriptive and they kind of describe where the ball is at all times. So they will describe the passage of play and they'll tell you if he's 25 yards out from the 18-yard box, or if he's near the halfway line, or if he's right out to the byline on the left-hand side, which direction teams are shooting. Something as simple as that makes a big difference. And they also provide, little bits of nuanced information as well. So they might say things like, for example, if it was at a Scotland game, they might say, John McGinn fires a shot from the 18-yard box with his bright pink boots. So they'll put in little descriptive things like that. That John McGinn's wearing bright pink boots. That's something everybody in the ground can see that he's wearing that. But if you're visually impaired, you might not pick up, or you wouldn't pick up on things like that. And so I was down a couple of years ago. I was down at a Wolves game and they were saying, I can't remember which player it was off the top of my head, but the commentator says, so he's leading out the team and he seems to have a new haircut this week from 2 weeks ago, and things like that. So it's a lot more descriptive, and they kind of try and tell you a bit about what's happening, around the pitch at the same time as well.
I tell you what, John, if John McGinn is wearing pink boots and the game's gone on it, well, we've got nowhere left to go if he's wearing pink. Yeah. So does that mean then, John, that when you go to a ground that hasn't got the audio description, it's a much more frustrating experience for you? Yeah,
totally. Well, I'm not frustrating in the way that I'm not really sure 100% what's happening on the pitch. But I still enjoy the sort of social aspect of football. I'm still going with my mates, and you still get that banter in the crowds and that I really, really enjoy. But it is frustrating from the fact that I don't have that kind of understanding of what's actually happening on the pitch. You can kind of tell by crowd reactions and things what's just happened, but it's not the same experience at all.
And when you decided to do this, did you sit down and plan it like a military campaign, or did you just sort of wake up one day and go, I think I'll go to Hibs today, or I'll go to Bonnyrigg Rose?
Yeah, so at the very start of the journey, it's a lot easier to be a bit more spontaneous with things like that. Like, Hibs are playing this week. I haven't been to Easter Road. I'll go there, because you've got such a large list of grounds that you haven't yet been to. But as we got maybe about halfway through, maybe 2/3 of the way through, you kind of had to sit down and kind of plan. Okay, right. what grounds have I not been to? When are they playing? When can I fit it in? So kind of after I got past the halfway point, that's when I really kind of had to start more or less planning each what games would be going to.
And at what stage did you decide this would be a really good idea to turn into a book? Or was that always the plan from the start?
No, that was never the plan, really. So, like, what I'd actually been doing is when I'd been going round the grounds, maybe when I got to maybe ground, maybe like sort of 18, 19, 20, round about then, I started making little videos for social media, posting them to like TikTok and Instagram and things like that. And it kind of started building up a bit of traction online. People kind of started to really enjoy following our journey. And what I'd been doing anyways, like because we've been going to all the grounds by public transport, I'd actually been keeping a little notes in my notes app about, things that I picked up on that I really liked. So I kind of had almost like a little journal or diary of our journey anyway. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna this would probably make a really, really good book. And just documenting our experiences at each of the grounds. So yeah, I kind of pitched it to a few publishers, and one of them came back and they just said, you know what, we absolutely love this story. We would really, really love to do it with you. And it just kind of snowballed from there, really.
Sure. The reason I ask about the planning is because I'm interested in whether the teams you were visiting knew that you were coming and therefore gave you an experience that might not reflect the experience of a normal blind fan turning up on a match day. See what I mean?
Yeah, so because you actually have to, that's probably one of the biggest barriers for, I would say, disabled supporters in general, is actually the accessible tickets. Because as you know, if you're going to a club, most people can just open their phone on that same morning, go, oh yeah, there's tickets left. You've got your ticket. You've got your ticket within a couple of seconds. But if you're needing, accessible entrances, or you need to book a wheelchair bay, or you need to book a seat, and you've got maybe like a carer ticket or whatever, you can't just go online and book these tickets. So you kind of have to phone maybe the ticket office a couple of days before to let them know you're coming. And there was a few times that we had to do that, and most of the time it was absolutely brilliant. They were able to just sort us out on the phone there and then. But other times, if it's maybe one of the smaller clubs, the person who deals with the accessible ticketing might not have been in that day, and so you'd have to phone back tomorrow and things like that. Yeah.
And do even the smaller clubs have stewards that are trained to deal with accessibility? Do they all have disability liaison officers, for example?
Yeah, and I believe that's now a UEFA requirement that clubs have to have somebody appointed as a disability liaison officer, which I think is a really good thing because it gives disabled supporters that point of contact, which is brilliant. It also comes with its challenges as well. Whereas, in Scotland, say like the two big clubs, Rangers and Celtic, they have somebody who that's their full-time job as the disability liaison officer.
Yeah.
You get further down the table to maybe like a Hearts, St Johnstone, Hibs. It might also be the title tagged onto the SLO or the ticket office manager. And then you get really down to the bottom leagues, like League 1, League 2, you might find that the DLO is actually a volunteer at the club. Due to, obviously, the financial restrictions of the lower league football and things like that. But in general, I find that it's a really, really good to have that point of contact. And I've had contact with all of them here in Scotland now, and they work well together as a team, so they keep in contact with each other, which I find is really good. And I think it's a really good thing that football clubs have that point of contact.
I'm just going to briefly bring Kieran in here, John, because we have discussed this before, Kieran, between ourselves. You can understand why a lot, and I'm picking Bonnie Rig Rose here out just as an example. You can understand why they wouldn't be able to afford a full-time disability liaison officer, but further up in the Scottish Championship, Scottish Premier League, there's no excuse financially, is there? It doesn't cost a lot of money to make sure that football grounds are accessible for people like John to turn up at, does it?
You would think that clubs would want to do this, as well as being able to afford it. I mean, certainly the finances in the Championship are challenging because they've not got the visits from the bigger clubs. Many of the players are part-time, but I don't see why once the club is committed to it, it can't be done on a part-time basis, or have some form of acceleration if you get an inquiry from somebody that wants to come to a game, because every fan's a potential repeating a fan. I always say that every fan's a potential megaphone for just how good your club is. I remember when I went to Arbroath with the Baroness a few years ago. We had the most fantastic experience, and whether you're a fan that needs accessibility or not, I think most clubs are pretty good. I suspect there's relatively few people on John's naughty step as far as Scottish football is concerned.
Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more, or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
I'm interested to hear, John, as well, that you did all this by public transport, because Scotland's a big country. There are lots of you've got a big cluster of teams around Glasgow and Edinburgh, but you've got a lot of miles to travel to get up to some of the northern teams. Was travel your biggest logistical nightmare?
Oh, 100%. That's what I always tell people. The biggest part of the challenge itself was actually the travelling part of it.
Really?
Because we were taking, it was mostly the train to places, but there was times where we'd have to get on buses to go to really remote places after we got off the train, and things like so. We went away up to the sort of far northeast of like Peterhead, and really down to the sort of southwest corner of Stranraer and that as well. So it was a bit of a logistical nightmare, and yeah, I could probably write a book just about the transport side of things, but that's a whole different story altogether. But yeah, that was definitely the hardest part of the whole thing.
And that brings us on to costs, John, because we are a football finance pod.
Yeah.
And we would have had you on anyway, but we do need to find a football finance angle. Have you calculated how much you spent doing this?
I haven't calculated the whole thing, but it's probably cost me over the last few years anyway. It's probably cost me, I would say, at least a couple of £1,000 altogether, at least. When you factor in even things like your tickets for the games, the travel. Well, the travel. I've got a rail card that I can travel on the trains and buses for free in Scotland. So that's actually been a really big cost saver. But there was times where we'd have to maybe take taxis, and then you factor in things like your food and drink at the games. Sometimes it was like really long, 15 hour days would be out, and there was a couple of times where we stayed overnight and things as well. So yeah, all it does all add up. I would probably reckon at least a couple of £1,000.
What's the hardest ground to get to from you?
The hardest one, I would say there's two actually. And it's probably just the route that we took to get to them. There probably is an easier way of doing it, but I actually found Airdrie a really difficult ground to get to. There is a train station about a 20-minute walk from the ground, and we've been there twice now, but the walk to the ground isn't so straightforward. There's so many different crossings that you have to do, and you have to cross and then cross back over. And I also found Livingston a really, really challenging one to get to as well, because there's two train stations in Livingston itself. There's Livingston North and Livingston South, but the football ground's right in the middle, so there's no. It doesn't matter which one you go to. It's about maybe a half-hour walk to the ground. And Livingston itself, I don't know if you've ever been to that area. Yeah. It's just full of roundabouts, and it's mostly designed for traffic. So you're kind of crossing dual carriageways and things like that. Which, I found that pretty challenging.
John, when it comes to doing the publicity round for the book, which you've already embarked on, I'm afraid, John, you're going to have to get used to the fact that Sam is going to get a lot of attention.
Oh, I'm just Sam's sidekick.
Well, welcome to my world. In the same way that when Kieran and I are doing things, I am very much the Sam. Kieran's the Sam of the situation. People want to know. They want to know about Kieran, but I, like Kieran, I've had some great experiences at lower league Scottish ground. I mean, I remember a game at Cowdenbeath, which was it's one of the happiest days of my life, I have to say. But so many of the lower league grounds in Scotland are still the seating areas are quite small. You've got big terraced areas. Is that more difficult for you and Sam to negotiate and navigate than an all-seater stadium?
I would actually probably argue that the older, Arbroath, Cowdenbeath, a lot of Bonnyrigg Rose, places like that, they've still got all the old terracing, and they maybe have just a small section where there's seating. I would actually probably argue that the terracing's probably the easy for myself and Sam. It's probably easier for us to navigate because you're not actually having to find a specific designated seat, and you can just kind of wander around the grounds during the game. I actually really quite like these little grounds like that where you're not kind of restricted to a specific seat. But if you were a wheelchair user or that's going to be an absolute nightmare to get around, the old terraced grounds and things like that. So I think depending on what kind of disabled supporter you ask, I think they would probably have a very different answer to that. But I actually really enjoy the old grounds with the old terracing because I always feel like they've got a bit of character to them as well.
I've seen quite a few of the videos of you and Sam. Mm-hmm. He yawns a lot, doesn't he? He looks like he could. He looks like he could be alert at any given moment. But in most of the videos, he looks like he'd rather be having a. He seems to like the ladies as well, John. I don't know if you've noticed that.
He's a bit of a ladies' man, Sam.
Yeah. Again, welcome to our world. This is going to sound. It's going to sound sacrilegious, John, but it strikes me that football grounds in general must be difficult for Sam to navigate. Would it not have been easier for you on your own to navigate these with a stick?
No, I mean for me, when my sight started deteriorating, I initially started using a long cane, and I didn't enjoy using it. even to this day, when I still have to use it, I don't particularly. I'm not particularly good with it, and a lot of people don't realize, like with the long canes as well, is that quite a lot of the time when you're sort of tapping it side to side, the pavements aren't completely flat. So you've got like nooks and crannies, and then it gets stuck in there, and then it starts to stab you in the chest and things like that.
Yeah.
So I have actually found that it was slowing me down using a long cane. I wasn't getting about at all. So when I was actually matched with a guide dog, it was just like it just kind of opened the world to me, really, because I was able to just kind of navigate, kind of switch off and just kind of follow, learn to follow the harness handle, and he would kind of like navigate me around obstacles, whereas with the cane you're kind of having to find the obstacles yourself.
What's he like in the ground? Is he okay with the noise?
Oh yeah, he loves it. Or as you've seen, sometimes he doesn't, and he'd just much rather be sleeping. I think, depending on who's playing. But he's not fazed in the slightest by noises. We've been to places like Wembley and that, where it's been like 90,000 people, and the noise just doesn't faze him at all. And a lot of the time, he, like during the game itself, he will be stretched out and having a snooze, not really actually caring what's happening in the stadium.
Imagine the sleep he would have got at Roy Hodgson games. Selhurst Park. He would have looked forward to that, a good old 90-minute kip all the way through a Roy Hodgson game. Some of the newer grounds in England that I've been to, John, Arsenal, for example, actually have water and toilet facilities for dogs, which strikes me that it's obviously impractical for some of the smaller grounds, but that would make your life much easier, presumably, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, it really does. We've been to quite a few of the EFL and Premier League grounds where they offer that. So they've got like designated sort of toilet areas for dogs, like you said, at Arsenal, at Wembley, and at Man City as well. They offer it at the Etihad as well, and when you book your ticket, they let you know that somebody can bring over a water bowl and things like that, or a blanket as well if he wants to have a lie down and that. So yeah, some of the newer grounds, some of the sort of Premier League ones have been absolutely brilliant to visit.
John, have facilities. It's that noise you can hear, by the way, and it's my son blowing his nose. I believe it's a B flat. That noise. Have facilities improved since you first started going to football as a kid, and have they improved enough?
So when I first started going to football, probably sort of mid 2000s, really, they didn't have facilities like or services like the audio descriptive commentary. Probably disability access wasn't, or the DLO role at clubs certainly wasn't a UEFA requirement at that point. So very few clubs had that point of contact. But I would actually say, even since the COVID lockdowns ended and stadiums reopened again to the public, even since then, I would say I've seen a gradual improvement, and I've seen a gradual. I've seen a gradual improvement in the way that clubs want to try and make improvements as well. So, like, for example, when we first started going around the 42 SPFL grounds, I think it was 60% of the Premiership and the Championship clubs that offered the audio descriptive commentary service. And I think now that's up to 71%. I think there's only one club in the Premiership that doesn't offer that for visually impaired supporters, which is really, really good, and it's really encouraging to see. And you've obviously got charities like Level Playing Field, and you've got Accessible, who used to be known as CAFE as well, who they work quite closely with UEFA to design the sort of UEFA policies around disability access and that as well, and that's been a real big improvement. But I would always say that there's it'll never be something that's completely finished. There'll always be something that clubs could do better.
Level Playing Field do a fantastic job.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
It strikes me they're a little bit like this podcast in that, in a way, they would rather not have to exist.
Yeah.
But the only way they won't exist is when every football fan is able to get into every ground in exactly the same way, which is unfortunately a utopian dream. Well, Neil Doncaster, the head honcho of Scottish football, listens to this pod. What changes would you say to him would really improve your match day experience, out with the audio description? What are the other little details that would make your life much easier and Sam's life much easier?
Yeah, I would love to see the SPFL take a really kind of more public approach to disability access. I know that the DAO group here in Scotland, they kind of coordinate themselves. So they set up like quarterly meetings where somebody chairs it and they bring all the 42 clubs together. But I would really love to see the SPFL maybe put some of their resources towards disability access, and I would love to see things like the SFA and SPFL kind of encouraging clubs to do more and kind of providing them with resources to enable them to do more. I know that the guys at the SPFL they've certainly been absolutely fantastic with me, and I'd love to see even a collaboration with myself and the SPFL and the clubs, take that next step forwards to kind of, because I actually said to the SPFL, I says in terms of where, like, we've had really positive experiences at all the grounds we've visited, so this is something we should really be shouting about, and something I think the SPFL can be really proud of, that their clubs are so welcoming. So I'd love to see the SPFL take that next step and maybe facilitate something between the DLO group and try and find some resources that can really push disability access in Scotland to the next level.
Well, exactly. I mean, because if clubs don't talk to the fans who need a disability access, they're not going to find out what they need to do to make those fans happy. I mean, the disabled supporters group at Palace, for example, are very, very vociferous, and the club listens. Unfortunately, it's such an old ground; it is difficult to retrofit some stuff in there, but still, the club are aware of the problems for disabled access, and hopefully, when we get the new stand, that will resolve it. But it strikes me that there are still some clubs who don't do enough, or only pay lip service. They do the bare minimum for getting people in, because, again, Kieran, as we've discussed before, if you can get 5 seats for non-disabled fans in the space one wheelchair takes up, you're going to try and discourage the wheelchair from turning up to the game, aren't you? In general, John, I want to finish on a positive note. Are other fans sensitive to your situation? Are they making allowances for you, or are they too busy making a fuss of Sam?
No, I have actually found of course, everybody loves to make a fuss of Sam. It's not every day you see a dog sitting there in the terraces in the stadiums. So I think I think everybody loves to see that, and I think everybody would love to see more dogs in the stadium, if I'm honest. The fans have actually been really brilliant. Even when they've stopped for a little chat, quite often they'll ask, how I'm able to take in the game. And when they hear that their club offers things like the audio commentary, they go, "Well, I've never knew our club did this." And so they've been sort of genuinely surprised to learn about that aspect of their own football club as well. And the supporters that we've met around all the 42 clubs have just been absolutely brilliant, and so have the clubs themselves. The staff and the stewards at the clubs have just been so welcoming, and I would quite happily go back to any of the 42 grounds, knowing that we would get a nice welcome from the club and the supporters. They've just been fantastic.
I can't wait to read the book, John, but it's not out until the 1st of May. So I want to ask you one thing. What was is it possible to pick out a highlight of the trip?
Oh, there has been so many. I think definitely getting surprised by the SPFL at our 42nd grounds when we went to Forfar and they presented myself with a SPFL Special Recognition Award, and Sam got his own SPFL winner's medal as well. So it was that was absolutely a highlight. Yeah, that was really, really nice of them to do that.
I have to say, John, it's really encouraging. I suspect that if Kieran and I had interviewed you 20 years ago, your experience would have been very different to the experience you're telling us. It's much more upbeat and positive than maybe I would have even thought 5 years ago, to be perfectly honest, which does give you hope that progress is being made to make every ground accessible to every fan.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, if we even had this conversation 5 years ago, it probably would have been a very, very different conversation. But it's certainly even organisations like the EFL, they've now got a sort of EDI department where they're looking at. They've got like a team of people who are now looking at access, not just for disabled supporters, but like the sort of LGBT community and different religious groups and things like that. So we're definitely seeing steps in the right direction to make football more welcoming for all supporters.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, John. This is where you get your chance to do your one big plug. So what's the book called? We know when it's coming out, but what's the book called?
So the book is called Following Sam, and it's out on the 1st of May, and you can pre-order it now on both Amazon and Waterstones.
Do you know, I feel for you. Your name's not even in the blinking book title.
No, Sam's the star of the show.
It's an outrage. When my first book came out, I was so excited. Except Gary Lineker had his name on the front cover more times than I did. I like to think that Sam is quietly aware of the fuss that's being made of him. Really.
I always say that Sam has become a bit of a poser, because anytime, like honestly, even if you hold your phone up like that, he sits up like, "Oh, you must be taking a picture of me now." Yeah. Anytime he sees a photographer with a camera, he'll just stop and look at them as if say, like, "Take a picture." Then, so it's become a bit of a diva.
It's exactly like working with Kieran Maguire. That's exactly how it's become. John, it's lovely to talk to you. Thanks so much. I wish you every success with the book.
No, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Clorox Sentiva smells like grapefruit. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
Okay, we could be here all day. Try Clorox Sentiva for a trusted clean with long-lasting freshness. Also available in lavender and coconut. Use as directed.
I was never really a runner. The way I see running is a gift, especially when you have stage 4 cancer. I'm Anne. I'm running the Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America. I run for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute to give people like me a chance to thrive in life, even with cancer.
Join Bank of America in helping Anne's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportAnne. What would you like the power to do? References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation. Copyright 2025.
It's always strange, Kieran, off the back of an interview. We've had some interviews recently which were, shall we say, chippier than others, and there's always more to say off the back of some of the chippy ones than there is off the more positive ones. I mean, it's just it's delightful to hear that things are improving and that John had a lovely experience with his dog Sam watching football all over Scotland.
Yes, it was, and it reminds you why you love being a football fan.
Yeah.
There is far, far more good than bad. No doubt the anti-DEI brigade will be chuntering away, but this is really sort of one in the eye for them. And John had a great experience. Sam, by all accounts, had a good experience, but I bet he was fussed over.
Oh my god!
At every single ground, yeah, everybody will be trying to sneak in a wee bit of pie or a sausage roll or whatever it is. And there's no downsides. Football is a force for good, and this was quite. Yeah, but I think we have become a bit jaundiced doing this show for so long. This was really sort of reaffirming of why we love the game.
But it's strange you mentioned the anti-EDI. It still beggars belief, Kieran, that there are people who take umbrage at the fact that we should be making life easier for some people to get into football. I just can't get my head around that attitude.
Yeah, there just seems to be an awful lot of very angry people in the world at present.
So. Yeah,
and we're chilled out entertainers.
We are. Hark at you talking about chilled out entertainers. I love the Scottish football experience, and I love me a Scotch pie, Kieran. But I'll tell you, if Sam was getting a bit of pie at every game he went to, he might have to get on the treadmill afterwards because they're remarkable creatures, guide dogs. And, I love that fact, even though it says on their little harness, "I'm working, please don't disturb me." You can't resist. And as John says, everyone says to John, "Can I say hello to Sam?" So, well, you can say hello to me first.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Exactly how I feel at signings for our book, Kieran. Don't forget, you can now join our Price of Football Club, where you'll get ad-free listening, bonus episodes, and much more. Just go to priceoffootball.com and click on Join the Club to sign up today. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter X and find us on our YouTube channel. And if you'd like to buy our book, you can find details on our website, priceoffootball.com. Just the book, Kieran. Looks like the T-shirt may be out of stock again.
Oh dear, there'll be a few broken hearts.
Well, a few broken ribs if you're trying to get into the small size as well, I think.
The Price of Football. The Price of Football.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.